All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott from Jeff Teaches Programming. In the last video that you can see on your screen right now, we continued going over our C# BMI data grid example, and in particular, we went over kind of a more detailed explanation of some of the files in that program. In particular, we went over the app.config file. We went over the BMI-DB file that's in our data folder, and we went over the person.cs file, which is in our models folder. We're going to continue that in this particular video. And I'm to start with, and when I look in here, these are all grayed out, so probably I don't need any of them, but I wanted to look at, let's see, that was the person. So let's get rid of a few of these here that are opened up right now. Okay, these are our forms, so we can leave those open. Let's start by going over this person repository that you see right here. Now this person repository is the other file, or the file, whatever you want to say, that's here in our data folder. All right. Now, right now, what it says on here is this class will handle database access for person objects, which is true. But let's add a little bit more comments to it. And we will say the person repository class, what it does, it implements the repository pattern. Now, just to put it as simply as possible, this pattern separates data access logic from both the user interface and the business logic. Now, does that make a lot of sense? Maybe not. So let's try to put it even simpler than that. So, in other words, this class, for lack of better words, kind of acts like a, I don't know, middleman between the application and the database. So it's a communication type of mechanism, for lack of better words. All right. So what do we have in here? Well, you can see we've got our CRUD operations. So there's our get all persons, which is our read. And then we've got our add person, which is our create. Then we've got our update person, which is our update. And then we've got our delete person, which again, as you'd guess, is our delete. So it's allowing all of the database things to take place, for lack of better words. All right? So what are we doing here? I mean, what are we doing here? All right? Well, this is what we had previously in here. This is what we had. Now remember, when we did this, we had to write our own SQL. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to take all this that's in here right now and comment it out. All right, now that's going to give me errors. Don't worry about it, because we're going to replace it right now with what we're about to do. And what we're going to do here, for lack of better words, is we're going to cut this down to a couple lines. So I'm going to have here using var context equals new PersonDbContext. I'm getting an error. I'm not sure why. We'll figure this all out in just a second. All right. Okay. And then we want to return context.persons.toList. So what we're doing here is we're replacing everything that we had in here with this. So in other words, we're letting the system is going to be generating the SQL for us. Now I believe I'm missing something in here. So we've got personapp.models. Yeah, that's our person. But we're getting an error. And that's going to be from our context file. Where is that? Person repository, but we should have a DB context file in there too. Where is that? I don't know what's going on here, but let's see if we can figure it out. All right. So I'm going to come over to my EF Core, Entity Framework Projects, Forms, models, data, person repository, models, we got person.cs. Something is missing here, so I'm going to take a quick break and see if I can find it. Okay, I'm looking through my code, and I believe the reason that I'm getting the errors, I've got a file missing here. So let's go in here and let's add a class, and it will be PersonDbContext. .cs. All right. So we will need to use in here probably very little of this stuff, but I'm going to put in here what I think we're going to need, which is using Microsoft Entity Framework Core, using personapp.models, and using system.configuration. Now we're getting gray, they're all gray because I haven't written any code in here yet. Let's make this public. All right, and let's start putting in some code. This will have to, whenever you do this, it always implements DB context. So we knew that. That's good. Oops. So we're going to have a DB set in here. It's going to be of type person. We'll call it persons, and we'll put in a get set. Let's That's a start. And then the next thing we have to do is come in here and say protected override void on configuring DB context. So let's see in here. Okay, we got an error here because that should have been a curly brace. Whoops, curly brace, but that'll fix that. Okay. All right, so in here, options builder options. All right, and in here, we don't want this. We want, this is basically going to allow our communication to take place. So we have in here is options dot no, just options. Let's see, we wanted this to be options. Okay. I'll get it all working in just a minute. We don't need this builder here. We could put it there. It's not hurting anything. There. Now, options. Options. Dot. Use SQL server. All right. Trying to read my own writing here. Okay, and then a parenthesis, and we'll put on a new line here. Configuration manager. Dot. Connection strings. And we need the name of our database, which we said was going to be, let me move this over here. Which I think we said we were going to be calling. Let's go back into our app.config to make sure we're using the right name. And that's it, BMI database 2. Okay, we'll move that back over. Close that. Come on, Jeffrey. Okay. Then we need dot connection string. And our paren with a semicolon on the end. Now, why am I getting that error? Because this S foolishly was put in as a capital S. This, again, is going to basically say what we want to do here is we want to, this is going to represent our table. All right, we're using a DB set that's going to represent our table. This will allow us to get the information that's in it. This will allow us to set the information that's in it. And when you do this and you work with DB context, you must override this on configuring method. We're doing that and we're telling it to use SQL Server with the configuration manager, and our connection string is going to be this database. Hopefully that all made at least a little bit of sense. So file, save all. I'm going to close this. And now you'll notice that that error that we had there before at least is no longer there. We got another error on the next line, which we'll look at in just a second. But the point is, where we had using var context equals new person DB context, it is now not giving us an error anymore. All right. So we want to return context.person.toList. Now, why are we getting an error there? Don't know. Try to figure it out right now. Persons is not null here. We'll figure it out in a second, but let's talk about what this is doing, or what we're attempting to do. We're trying to create a new EF Core database context here. We want to be able to retrieve everything from the persons table. All right? And when we do this, we wanted to convert it into a list. So the using var context, what that does is it makes sure that the database connection is properly disposed of. All right? So when you're done with it, it gets rid of the connection. The context.persons refers to the DB set. So it refers to what we just previously put in there. All right? And then the toList is going to execute the SQL command. All right. Now, I'm wondering if when I did this before in the file we just created, no, we did say persons. Trying to figure out where the error would be. Again, I'm going to go back to my code. Strings, the name of our database, .connection string. That all, as far as I can tell, that all looks correct. So why am I getting the error on our repository file? Oh boy. Here, this could be it. We no longer want to be returning a data table. All right. What we want to return now is a list of type person. Okay, and now all of our errors are gone. So what we're doing here is we're creating a new context. We're telling it to run the select statement for us, all right, on the persons table. So in other words, as it says, it's a read-only display of all database records. So it's the equivalent of what we did here with the select star. But notice the brevity here. We've got this here in 2 lines, where previously it was 1. 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. All right, now is that big a thing? Probably not, but somewhat. Now I'm going to come in here into the add person. I'm going to comment that out. All right, it's a void, so I notice I'm not getting any errors right now. All right. But the first thing that we're going to do, very similar to what we did before. In fact, I'm going to copy what we did here before with this using statement. All right, so using var context equals, we got to do this basically every time we have to create the context. All right, now, we're going to say here, context.persons.addPerson. Well, notice the IntelliSense already picked that up for us. And then, since we're adding something, we have to do a context.saveChanges. We didn't have to do that previously because all we were doing was reading everything that was in there. All right. Now I'm looking in here and I notice I got a bunch of errors, and that's okay because I didn't go down all the way with this. This all has to be commented out. Now take a look. With 3 lines of code, look at how this was what we had in there before. All right. So you can see how much nicer that is. Then we're going to do the same thing with update. Let's take everything that's in here and let's comment it out. Let's go back just like we did previously. Maybe I have, this should be commented out as well. There. All right. So just like we just did, I'm going to grab and create a context. All right, and after we create that context, now notice it thinks we want to do a remove. Well, we don't here. We don't want to do a remove. We want to do an update. All right, so previously we did the add person. Again, we opened the database connection. We marked the entity as basically being new when we saved it to the database. That add person tracks it to the database as being added, and the save changes generates and executes the insert statement for us. Now we've got the update. Now, before we did this, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually let this go in, but I don't want it to remove a person. I want it to update, not update, update a person. All right, and after we update the person, again, we want to come in and save the changes. All right, and it'll even figure that out for us. There you go. So very similar to what we did before. We come in, for lack of better words, we attach an existing person entity. All right, that's what the using statement's doing. We're marking it as being modified with the update statement, and we're saving the changes back to the database. So that line, that save changes, is replacing this long update that we did in here previously. All right. It's going to use the primary key to find the record that we want to update, and it'll generate the update statement for us. It's really important that we've got a valid primary key set, and we're doing that automatically. Now, I'm looking in here. What did I just do? Oh, I put into add. Oh, there's add. Yeah, and there's update. All right. So now the thing that's left to do in here, I'm going to copy this. fact, I'm not even going to worry about that right now. I'm going to take everything in the delete, and again, I'm going to comment it out. Then I'm going to take everything that we just had here in the update, and all I want to do is replace the update statement that's in here with a delete. So this is delete. All right, now it looks like it's giving me an error, so let's double check the code here. Okay, I want to create the context. All right, but this isn't as simple as I made it sound like it was. Okay, so let's do it correctly. We're creating the new context. All right, after we create the context, we're going to create a person. So var person equals context.persons.find. What do we want to find? Person ID. All right. If it's not equal to null, what that means is it exists. So if it's not equal to null, we want to remove it, and we want to save our changes. We don't need the true in there. So in English, we're creating a context. So we're setting it up. All right, we're telling it to find the record that we're looking for. If it could find it, then this won't be null. So we'll remove it. All right. Now, this could be a little confusing, so I am going to come in here and I'm going to remove all these comments that I put in. If you needed them, you could always go back to the previous version of the program and take a look at them. But notice how nice and compact now the add person is. The update person is, and finally even the delete person is. All right, they're all a heck of a lot smaller than they were before. All right. All right, I'm already at 28 minutes, so before I go on to the next thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to stop, and we'll start over with our next presentation. See you then.